Hello aspirants, very good morning to all of you. So friends, welcome back to Anthropology PYQ series. So let's try to decode every question and let's master every concept. So friends, as a part of our lecture series, so we have done almost around 36 questions and we are at almost 37th question. So let's try to look at the question of the day with us. So today let's discuss about the question from Anthropology paper 2. So that is, look at the question. Describe the nature of traditional socio-economic interdependence among the Todas, Kotas, Kurumbas and Iruals tribes of Nilgiri hills. So this is the question. So look at the second part of the question. So highlight the changes occurring in these interrelationships. So this is the question that is there with us. So now let's try to discuss about this particular question. So this is a beautiful question, so which has brought kind of systematic and a kind of a very good interrelationship between different tribes that are living in the Nilgiri hills. So that's very beautiful question. So even in our classes also we regularly discuss about such kind of interrelationships. So this is a beautiful question, that's from that point of view. So now let's try to understand this in a systematic fashion. So those who have joined, so very good morning to all of you again. So friends, now let's try to begin our basic discussion. So there, first we can just discuss and we can just understand this from the perspective of the beauty of Nilgiri hills. So when we generally talk from the perspective of Nilgiri hills is, in other ways we can say, it's an abode for so many of the tribal communities. So many tribal communities, be it could be Todas, Iruals, these people like Kotas and Kurumbas. So there are so many tribal communities they will rely. And ecologically also, it's a beautiful place. So now, all these tribes who are living in the Nilgiri hills, they have a kind of intricate socio-economic relationship amongst themselves. So the question is talking about such kind of intricate socio-economic relationship that exists between themselves. So to know this, what we have to understand. So to know this, we should understand who are these tribes and what are their economic status, like economic status and economic activities and occupation, all these things we should understand. Right? So now, first, let's try to understand one by one in a systematic fashion. So what about each tribe, and then let's try to explore about the interdependence, and then let's try to explore about the factors that changing their interrelationship. First, let us try to take up each tribe by tribe so that we can understand in a systematic fashion. So where, first, let's start with the Toda tribes. So I hope you might have heard about the Toda tribes. So Todas. So when we see from the perspective of Toda tribes, so we will generally hear about Todas in many areas. Can you able to recollect any scholars who have systematically studied Toda tribes, and can you text in the chat box so that we can see so to what extent you can recollect the concepts. So any scholar who has studied about Toda tribes. So if you see from the general perspective of the Todas were generally the pastoralists of Nilgiri hills. Pastoralists of Nilgiri hills. So now, as their chief occupation is pastoralism, that means their mode of subsistence is pastoralism, so they try to extract some of the dairy products, like let's say, so the milk, the ghee or the curd or like butter, all such kind of aspects. So their chief occupation is buffalo herding, and they will extract all such kind of dairy products. So that's another important aspect that you should remember. So now, so they will go for generally buffalo herding, and they generally rely on the extraction of dairy products. So what are the dairy products? So the dairy products like, let's say, milk and the butter, and it would be, we can say, ghee, etc. So they will extract and they will produce like that. So that's another important aspect. So this is one thing that you have to remember. right? So now, if you further see, so with about the Toda tribes, so scholar, I was asking about scholar, so let's see. So the answer, okay, Vinushri is saying that W.H.R. Rivers, very good. So W.H.R. Rivers is one important scholar who systematically studied about the Toda tribe. So you can remember about the contributions of W.H.R. Rivers here. So W.H.R. Rivers is a diffusionist scholar. So you should remember this thing. So these are some basic facts that you should remember here first. Okay, now, and not only this, like we heard about the Toda tribes in various places also. Do you remember bow and arrow ceremony that occurs? Bow and arrow ceremony is one important aspect that the Toda tribes are famous for with respect to marriage. So traditional peculiar modality. So that's another important aspect. Apart from that, so with respect to marriage pattern also, what form of marriage the Todas follow? So is it polyandry, is it polygamy, or what kind? So try to text in the chat box meanwhile. Now let's try to explore about more about the Kotas. So what are Kotas and what about the Kota tribal people? So there. So if we generally see from Kota tribes, so Kota tribes so usually Kota tribes are artisans. They are artisans and they are musicians. They are artisans, they are musicians, and they are service, especially they are the service specialists. Service specialists. So they will have different services they will extend. So that's where we can say that Kota tribes are service specialists. So as an artisans, so what do they do? So let's try to see. So generally their occupation is they will rely in blacksmith activity. So blacksmiths. So this is one thing. Then they will produce pottery. This is one thing. Then apart from that, so they act as musician, they'll extend music, and apart from that, so they will also go for, they'll also do carpentry. So these are some of the basic works that they will do. Now, as they are blacksmiths, pottery, they'll produce pottery and all those things. So what kind of things they will do means they will produce generally tools, weapons, then they'll produce pots, and they will provide music in rituals. So this is another important aspect that you should remember about the Kota tribes. Is that clear? So tools, pots, music, and such kind of weapons, so they will provide. So this is another important aspect. Now here with respect to Toda tribes, so when we see, so Toda tribes also ritually what they are. So ritually if you see, they are ritual priests. You should remember this also. So they are ritually, they are musicians. Ritually, the Todas are the priests. So this is one thing, another important aspect you should remember. So now let's see the answers. So whatever we have got. So what's the answer that we have got? So it's Venushri is saying that polyandry. Very good. So Todas are very well known for polyandry. So then, so Purnima. So a Purnima. In Toda tribes, we see all type of marriage, but mostly polygamy. So it's specifically polyandry, we can say, right? So good. So now let's try to further understand about the further aspects about the other tribes. So we have next Kurumba tribes. So what about Kurumba tribes? So Kurumba tribes are basically, so what is the basic traditional mode of subsistence of Kurumba tribes? If you know, you can text in the chat box. Kurumba tribes. So when we see from Kurumba tribes point of view, So Kurumba tribes are basically, they are hunting and gathering tribes, and along with that, so they are shamans, shamanism. So for them, this is famous. So they are hunter-gatherers, you can mention like that. That would be another way you can systematically learn it. They are hunter-gatherers and they are very much famous for shamanism. So have you heard about shaman? Shaman, sorcery, witchcraft, all those things. So magical religious practitioners. So shaman. So that's one important aspect. Now, what's the chief mode of economic subsistence? They are very well known for hunting and gathering of the food. Hunting and gathering of food. So this is one important aspect. So they rely on this thing. So furthermore, so what about their other contributions? So they are very well known for this shamanism, shamanistic you can mention magico-religious activities or magical practices. So this is another important aspect, okay. So here, as they go for this hunting and gathering, so they will also get some of the minor forest produce like honey. So one of the common examples. So honey collection, that would be the common thing of the Kurumba tribe. So this is another important aspect you should remember. Then if you see, what about Irula tribes and their aspects? So what's the peculiarity about Irula tribes? Can you able to recollect? So anything that you can say about Irula tribes? So Irula tribes are famous for what? So try to recollect and text. Irula tribes. So here Irula tribes. So when we see from the perspective of Irula tribes, so Irulas are also a way we can say hunter-gatherers. So that's one important aspects. So they are also hunter-gatherers, and they rely on hunting gathering, and apart from this, so their chief activity is snake and rat catching. Snake and rat catching. Plus they are deep forest dwellers. They are forest dwellers. So they know about the ecology, forest ecology of the Nilgiri hills very much. So that is another important aspect. So they are snake catching tribes, snake and rat catching experts. So that's their chief thing. So here, so these are generally actually they also depend upon the minor forest produce. So you can replace here this, that, they go for hunting and gathering, and along with that they will also go for this thing that what you can mention, the shifting agriculture or shifting cultivation. Shifting cultivation. So that means they produce food grains. So this could be one important aspect. So here they will produce minor forest produce and they will rely on honey collection. So this is how. So first we should know about various aspects about these tribes. So very good. So what's the answer? Irula tribes are very much famous for the snake catchers. So very good. So that's the right answer. Now, if you see from the perspective of what kind of the intrinsic relationship that exists between them. So we have to interconnect all these services. So each tribe has some specificity and each tribe has some sort of deficiency. So this deficiency and the surplus would be exchanged. So all of them will go for a kind of systematic reciprocal exchange. So they have a kind of intricate socio-economic interdependence in the form of reciprocal exchange of the goods and services. So let's see how do they do this in a systematic fashion. So when you see from the perspective of this interdependence, so what kind of thing we have? So it is very well known, and we have understood that the Thoda tribes are there. So if you see from Thoda tribes point of view, so Thodas were basically, they are the pastoralist tribes. I hope you can remember that. So they are pastoralists. Now, as they are pastoralist tribes, so they generally rely on the dairy products. That means they produce the dairy products. This is one thing. Now, another hand, we have Kota tribes. So Kota tribes are very much famous for they are artisans and musicians, and they produce that. So now we have Kota tribes. So this Kota tribes are basically artisans and musicians. So as they are artisans and musicians, they'll produce things like tools, then pottery, or then music, particularly ritual music. Then another side, if you see, so we have our Kurumba tribes. So what about Kurumba tribes? So Kurumba tribes are very much famous for our shifting cultivation and shamanism. So you can remember that. So Kurumba tribes. So Kurumba tribes are well known for the shifting cultivation and shamanism. Shifting cultivation as well as the shamanism. So here what do they do? So the chief contributions would be like food grains, like sorcery, healing, etc. So they will help in provision of food grains. Then furthermore, they help in providing, doing activities like sorcery and healing. It was the chief activity that they will do. And on the other hand, we have Irula tribes. So Irula tribes, we have understood the basic expertise of them. So they are hunter-gatherers and snake catchers. Snake catching. This is their expertise. Now, the service, what kind of service they provide? So they usually provide minor forest produce and snake catching activity. So minor forest produce. Snake and rat catching. So this is the typical service they'll be providing. Now, what's there? How they are intricately interlinked means, now you look here systematically. So what happens here? So the Toda tribes, they will try to provide all the dairy products that they are providing, that they are developing to the Kota tribes, and in the similar fashion to the Irula tribes as well as to the Kurumba tribes. So this is one important aspect that we should remember. So you can just see that. So they will provide the dairy products to the Kotas. Now, as they are also ritualistic priests, so like this is another important service they will provide. So now what happens in Kotas? So Kotas generally would produce the tools, pottery and music in rituals, all those things. So they act as the priests and they will provide dairy products. So they produce the tools, weapons, pots and all those things, music. So they will extend music to Todas. So in rituals. So this is how, so both of them, they will exchange their services and their products. In the similar fashion, so what we can see, so same way we can see the Irula tribes as well as our Kurumba tribes also. So whatever they do, so they will exchange amongst themselves. So this is how the services would be exchanged. So they will give this and they will take this. In the similar fashion, if you see, so Toda tribes, in between Toda tribes and in between our Kota tribes also, so we can have similar kind of such kind of reciprocal exchange system where they will give this and they will take this. So in the same fashion, so this is how, so they will try to exchange their basic services amongst themselves and they will try to do this activity. So this is where, so each tribe has had a kind of specific thing to provide and specific thing to accept, because they doesn't have they're not musicians, so they want musicians. So they're not shamans, so they want shamans. So like that, so as these people will provide shamanism, sorcery, witchcraft and all such kind of things. So this is how, so all of them are intricately interlinked in a systematic fashion. So this is how the Nilgiri hills, they are not only interdependent on socio-economic aspects, rather than they are dependent culturally, they are dependent ritualistically, they are dependent in so many aspects. So that's another important aspect you should remember. So if you see or if you look from this particular representation point of view, so now you can have this, that this is a kind of systematic this kind of representation, this kind of relationship, you can call it as a kind of, you can say it as a kind of ritual reciprocal exchange system. Ritual reciprocal exchange system. So it's a kind of intricate socio-economic interdependence of these tribes. So try to remember this and you should draw such kind of illustrations. So when you draw such kind of illustrations, then only you can get good marks. If you simply mention about they provide this, they provide that, so it would be technically difficult for you to just explain. So now this kind of representation will give you or fetch you more marks. Is that it clear? So any doubts still here? If you have any doubts, you can text here. Can you able to follow? So seems, so there is no issue. So let's try to proceed further forward. So I hope no doubts here. So this is how, so they are having a kind of intricate interrelationship. So furthermore now, so we have addressed the first part of the answer. So what kind of things they are providing and what kind of things they are giving us. Now what kind of changes that have been occurred during these among these interrelationships. So that would be another important thing that we should know. So look at the question once again so that we can get it. So now we have understood the traditional socio-economic interdependence of these tribes. Now highlight the changes occurring in these interrelationships. So this is the next part of the question. So what are the changes that occur and what are the various aspects? So now can you able to text any changes that we have seen amongst these tribes and how their interrelationships are changing? So if you know anything, you can text in the chat box. So first, so if you see, so changes in their interrelationships. Changes in their interrelationships. Now, what has happened? There were some of the factors which has influenced these relations and these traditional modes of occupation and economic modes. So first, if you happen to see, there was a critical impact of the colonialism and our modernization. So what has happened means, first, when we see from the perspective of first factor, so colonialism and modernization. So these factors have created some sort of negative impact. So what kind of positive as well as negative impact? So negative impacts were like, let's say for example, so the British administration, what it has done, so it has systematically established some British administration in the Nilgiri hills in the 19th century. You can able to systematically recollect the development of Ooty. So Ooty has been developed as a tourist place. So when it has been developed, so many outsiders were started entering into this area. So this is how, so what has happened, so the tourist, it became a tourist spot, and apart from that, there were so many other things like introduction of the tea plantations and coffee plantations. So all these things drastically changed the region's economy and the ecology. So this is the first impact, right? So first you should remember about like change in ecology and environment, ecology and environment of Nilgiri hills. So this is one important aspects. Why? So they have added like introduction of coffee, tea, development of Ooty, etc. So these are something. Then furthermore, what has happened? So now British administration. So when Britishers are like the modernization, what it has been done. So traditionally these tribes were relying on barter exchange system. So give something and take something. So there were no kind of the money exchange system. So the modernization has introduced, so with introduction of money as a medium of exchange, this has occurred. So this actually in fact changed their mode of exchange. So shifted from barter exchange system to the money exchange system. So this is one important thing. So shift from barter system, shift from barter system seen. So this is one important development. Can you able to catch that? So traditionally they were engaging in reciprocal exchange system. Now, so from barter system to what they have done, so they have moved on to the reciprocal exchange, but this exchange is based on the money based, particularly are simply selling the products directly in the form of for exchange for the money. So that's another important aspect. Then apart from this, so they have also loss of land resources and land alienation occurred. Land alienation occurred. So these were some of the impacts of the British administration on modernization in this particular areas. So these things have systematically changed the traditional modes of occupation. So this was another important aspect. So this changed traditional modes of occupation changed. Now, what has further happened? So further if you see, there were some government policies as well as there were some of our legislations. So they further impacted this. What government policies we can say? What government policies we can say which have changed them? So try to think in this area. So first, if you see from the government policies, So there are so many government policies, like think about the Wildlife Protection Act, different forest laws, different forest policies. So all of them are protective in nature. So think about the concept of man and biosphere. So ecological, environmental protection laws. So all of these things, Wildlife Protection Act. So they systematically have changed their basic characteristics. So Wildlife Protection Act. So if you see in the Wildlife Protection Act 1972, isn't it? Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So what it has done, so it has been systematically kept certain restrictions, like let's say for example, it has outdated the activity of hunting and the catching trade of the snakes, isn't it? Snake skin. So this created, like let's say, hunting and trading of snake skin. There were restrictions. So because of this, so what has happened? So Irula tribes occupation affected. So there what they have done, so because of this, they have systematically became a kind of agricultural laborers. Now there is no more expertise of them for snake catching and rat catching, and they become mere agricultural laborers. So that's another important thing. So very good. So first, then next if you see, so forest policies. So there were so many forest policies. So starting from Forest Policy 1986 to Forest Policy Forest Dwellers Act 2006. So all of them have systematically brought certain restrictions on the forest access and resource extraction. So like Forest Dwellers Act. So what they have done, so they kept systematic restrictions on access to resources. So when there is restrictions on access to resources, so what has happened? This in fact impacted certain tribes. So think about the tribes like are again Iruals and Kurumbas. They have got impacted. So their source of livelihood got hampered again. So now they could not able to go for shifting cultivation. Now these people could not able to collect the minor forest produce. So that's how. So now they do not possess these resources with them. Then what has happened furthermore? So if you see furthermore, so there was like a education as well as like alternative livelihood has arisen because of this. So now because of this third thing, they started moving towards the education and alternate livelihood. They have gone for this. So there what has happened? So with this rise in educational levels and all those things, so what has happened? There was first impact, positive impact was increase in literacy rates. So this has occurred, so a positive impact. And second thing, diversification of the what we can say the occupation. So that is one another thing. Diversification of occupations. So here we can see like Todas, they were no more pastoralists, they were no more the dairy, they were relying on these areas. So what they have done, so they have systematically started practicing the modern modes of dairy product selling. So that's one another thing. So that's how. So you can see Todas, in Todas, so dairy products, but in modern markets they started doing it. They were no more restricted to these areas. So that was one thing. Then furthermore, what happened to Kotas? So Kotas, they have actually Kotas were the traditional craftsmen, all those things, so musicians and all those things. Now they were no more just simply relying on these activities. So now what have been done? So they have relied to some of the government and private sector jobs, as well as they have moved towards the cultivation activities. So this is one thing. So Kotas shifted themselves to the agriculture, particularly coffee, tea plantations, etc. Then apart from that, so some of the private and government jobs. So this was one change. So this occurred. Then furthermore, if you see, what about the other Kurumbas and Iruals? Kurumbas and Iruals, so their traditional things have got hampered. So here the Kurumbas and Iruals, they have systematically changed their thing from this to they started relying on agricultural labors, or like wage workers. So like this, their basic things have been changed. So this is one important aspect. Then what about the other impacts on cultural as well as other areas? So culturally, cultural erosion and social mobility that has occurred. So there, what has happened furthermore, if you see furthermore, so there was a kind of typical issues with respect to the ritualistic and cultural changes. So if you see there, so systematically decline in ritualistic aspects. Now we were ritualistic relationships. So we were seeing that the Todas were acting as the ritualist priests, and as well as the Kotas were the ritualistic musicians. Now they were no more in that relation. So that's one important change. Then there was a kind of social distance. So while traditional boundaries were set up aside, so now to some extent what they have done is the modernization has eroded this kind of aspects. So that's another important aspect. So then furthermore, these tribes got assimilated into other major mainstream life. So that is another important thing. So you can also remember this. So mainstream life and assimilation to that. So that's how. So there were so many changes in their life. So as there were so many changes, so this further changed their systematic intricate relationship amongst themselves. So Kotas are no more producing the tools and weapons, and the Iruals were no more catching the snakes in that particular region, and the Kurumbas were no more continuing with the shifting cultivation, and Todas, they were no more continuing with the traditional modes of the barter exchange, where they have moved on to modern markets of dairy products. So this is how their entire things, the traditional services have got changed. So now they were no more engaged in this kind of activities. So that's how various factors affected, and that's how so their socioeconomic interdependence also changed. Is that it clear for you all? So friends, so that's how you can proceed with this particular question. So I hope you are clear with this particular concept now. So any further doubts in this particular concept? So if there is any doubts, we'll see. Otherwise, we can wind up the discussion for the day. Right. So friends, so this is how you should approach to this particular question. So this is a beautiful question which has brought in the systematic interdependence of the various tribes. So Kurumba tribes, Irula tribes and our Toda tribes as well as our Kota tribes. So friends, let's try to wind up the discussion for the day. So let's meet again on Monday and let's try to take up another important question. So thank you all for joining this session and signing off for the day. So have a nice day.